Today's documentary, The Silent Scream, The Mystery of the SS Ourang Medan. The message began with the universal call of the damned. In the oppressive heat of a June afternoon in 1947, two American merchant ships, the Silver Star and the city of Baltimore, plowed through the churning waters of the Strait of Malacca. They picked up a faint but frantic signal. It was Morse code, tapping out a distress call that would freeze the blood of every radio operator who heard it. The voice behind the key was unidentified, the signal weak and fading, but the words were unmistakable. It was a staccato burst of pure panic. SOS from SS Ourang Medan. We drift. All officers including Captain dead, lying in chart room and on bridge. Possibly whole crew dead. A stunned silence crackled across the airwaves. Then, the key clicked once more. A final, chilling declaration before the signal died into static. I die. Then, nothing. Just the empty hiss of the radio and the vast, indifferent silence of the sea. What in God's name had happened aboard that ship? And who, or what, had sent that final, lonely message? The SS Ourang Medan, a name that now rings through maritime history as a synonym for terror. But in the beginning, she was just a ship, a Dutch-owned freighter, her precise origins and construction details frustratingly obscured by the fog of the post-war years and the destruction of records. What we know is that in June of 1947, she was somewhere in the treacherous waters of the Strait of Malacca, one of the world's busiest and most pirate-infested shipping lanes. The ship was a ghost even before she became a ghost ship. Her crew, estimated to be around 40 to 60 men, were faceless souls, their names lost to time. The sea was calm. The sky was clear. There was no storm on the horizon, no war to fight. Yet, something was waiting for them out there in the sweltering tropical heat, something that would not just kill them, but leave behind a tableau of horror so profound it defied all rational explanation. The Silver Star, under the command of Captain John M. Smith, was the first to plot an intercept course. The coordinates from the distress signal were logged and double-checked. The race was on. For hours, the Silver Star cut through the water, her crew tense, scanning the horizon. What would they find? A ship taking on water? A fire? A mutiny? Nothing could have prepared them. Finally, a speck appeared on the horizon, resolving slowly into the shape of a freighter, drifting listlessly, smoke curling lazily from a single stack. There was no sign of life on deck. No response to hails, no signal lamps. An ominous, unnatural quiet clung to the vessel. A boarding party was assembled, armed not with weapons, but with a deep, primal dread. As they drew alongside the Ourang Medan, the first thing that hit them was the smell. Not the smell of fire or decay, but something else, a metallic, acrid odor that carried on the breeze. They clambered aboard, their boots echoing on the deserted deck. And then they saw them. The dead were everywhere, but they were not laid peacefully in their bunks. They were sprawled across the open deck, in the passageways, at their stations. Their faces were all turned upward, eyes wide open and bulging, mouths contorted into silent, perfect OS of absolute, abject terror. It was as if every man had died in the same instant, looking at the same horrifying sight in the sky. Their bodies were rigid, fingers clawed at the air or at their own throats. Crucially, the boarding party reported no visible signs of injury. No bullet wounds, no cuts, no burns. Their skin, in the blistering heat, was described as having an unnatural pallor, almost a waxy sheen. They proceeded inward, the silence broken only by their own ragged breathing and the creak of the dying ship. On the bridge, they found the captain, dead at the helm, his expression a mirror of the horror on deck. In the chart room, the officers were collapsed over their maps. Even the ship's dog was found dead, its lips pulled back in a gruesome snarl. The engine room was a scene of orderly cessation. The engines had simply stopped. The temperature inside the steel hull was infernal, yet a deep, penetrating cold seemed to emanate from the corpses themselves. The rescuers were not investigating a tragedy. They were trespassing in a frozen nightmare. The immediate instinct was to get the ship under tow, to bring this floating moored to port for a proper investigation. But the Silver Star's crew, seasoned mariners who had seen the worst of war, were utterly spooked. The atmosphere was toxic, both literally and psychologically. As they prepared to tow line, a new terror announced itself. Smoke, thick and chemical, began to pour from the lower decks of the Ourang Medan. Not the smoke of a fire, but something denser, more sinister. Then came the first tremors, deep within the ship's belly. The boarding party fled back to the Silver Star, cutting lines in their panic. They had only just cleared a safe distance when the SS Ourang Medan erupted. A massive explosion tore the vessel apart from the inside out. A fireball blooming against the sky before the shattered hull was swallowed by the sea in minutes. The evidence, the bodies, the ship itself, everything was gone, leaving behind only expanding rings of debris and an unanswerable question on the water. The sole witnesses were the traumatized men of the Silver Star, left to tell a story so unbelievable it bordered on madness. In the days and weeks that followed, authorities scrambled for answers. Dutch and British maritime agencies launched inquiries. The story was reported in newspapers like the Straits Times and the New York Times, capturing global imagination. But with no physical evidence, the investigation hit a wall. The official record became a skeleton of facts, a distress call, a ghastly discovery, a sudden explosion. But the human mind abhors a vacuum, especially one filled with such terror. Theories, both sober and sensational, rushed in to fill the void. The first, and most persistent, was that of a deadly cargo. Post-war shipping was chaotic, and the Ourang Medan was rumored to be carrying a secret load of chemical weapons or volatile industrial chemicals. A leak of odorless, colorless poison gas could explain the simultaneous deaths and the lack of wounds. The subsequent explosion could have been triggered by a spark or the heat itself igniting the cargo. But this theory stumbled on the specific horror of the faces. Poison gas induces suffocation, paralysis, but not universally a look of frozen, directed terror at the sky. This detail birthed darker, more speculative ideas. Could it have been a UFO? Were the crew victims of some unknown force or energy weapon, a terrifying beam from above? Others whispered of a supernatural curse, a vengeful spirit of the strait, or a portal to a dimension of pure fear. Maritime folklore spoke of the Flying Dutchman and ghost ships. The Ourang Medan became their modern, corroborated counterpart. Yet, these are stories for the shadows. The search for a rational cause continued. Another theory pointed to a release of carbon monoxide or hydrogen sulfide from the ship's own engines or cargo hold, a silent, odorless killer. Perhaps the most compelling modern re-examination points to a terrifyingly mundane and brutal natural phenomenon. The Strait of Malacca sits on a seismically active zone. What if the Ourang Medan sailed over a subsea vent, suddenly releasing a massive, concentrated cloud of carbon dioxide or hydrogen sulfide? Such a gas cloud, denser than air, could have rolled over the deck, suffocating the crew in seconds. A subsequent spark in the gas-filled hold from failing equipment or a drop tool could then have triggered the cataclysmic explosion. It is a horrifyingly plausible scenario, the sea itself belching a deadly breath. Today, the Strait of Malacca remains a pulsing artery of global trade, thousands of ships passing through each year. Modern vessels are equipped with sensors for toxic gases, advanced communication systems, and detailed meteorological data. The story of the Ourang Medan endures as a primal cautionary tale. It whispers that for all our technology, the sea retains its ancient capacity for mystery and sudden, inexplicable violence. The final transmission, I Die, echoes beyond the specific fate of one radio operator. It is the voice of human consciousness confronted by the utterly incomprehensible. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, please subscribe to our channel. We bring you fascinating documentaries on history, science, civilizations, mysteries, and the untold stories that shaped our world. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss a new release. See you in the next one.